Go. So once again, we're here with Rosh Zebekiah, um, uh, an elder that's been around from the 1960s, coming out of adjust your camera a little bit, elder, because now I only see one half. There you go.
Yeah.
That's good. An elder coming out of under the teachings and tutelage of Chief Counsel Daniel, um, one of the members from King, and he's here to give us part two of his life, being a Israelite and living through America in the struggle and in the community. Shalom, Rosh. How are you?
Shalom, how are you, sir? I'm
I'm
doing well.
doing good. So I guess you could pick it up from where you left off, or you could do whatever it is that you want to do.
Okay. I wanted to first go back to Daniel,
That's Chief Counsel Daniel.
Apostle Daniel, mentioning him, uh, really he was unjustly dealt with. That's one of the reasons why he had the time that he had.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that has motivated me in terms of working with justice movements, in terms of helping our people. Because a lot of our brethren have gotten caught up in things that they really weren't involved with, it wasn't their fault, basically. And they were railroaded into the institutions. So institutions have been filled with people like in that situation.
Right.
And so Daniel, in him being in that situation, he used his time and applied it properly. He began to study, did a lot of things, and he helped a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Along with that, the other part I wanted to speak on, after I came home, I was talking to you about my name being Moshe and how it was turned to Zebekiah. Right. But it was Zebekiah ben Judah. I used it for years. But at my age today, finding the places that I ended up, the things that I did, I come to realize that I probably am out of the tribe of Levi. I just wanted to clear that up because particularly for my kids, because they look at me, wow, from knowing, what a Levite goes through and the things that have happened in my life, being left with distemper, left over here, helping people over here. I realized that that's where I'm at. So let's going back to Ben Azakim. I wanted to bring out some of the sisters and stuff that I didn't mention. During those days, and it was very important because
we're talking about back from the 60s, right?
I'm talking about back in the 60s. I'm talking about Sister Alita. I'm talking about Sister Sarai, Sister Renee, Imazella, who was Priest Emmanuel's wife. Sharon, one of the other sisters that used to come to, she used to come to Beth Shalom.
Okay.
Then there was sisters like Hamaliket and that came out of 905, Gate 7, or, Tabernacle of Israel. And these sisters.
How about Princess Miriam?
Princess Miriam, Princess Shakora.
Shakora, right.
All these sisters were dedicated sisters. They learned the way of life. They learned the teachings. They harnessed the children up. And most of them sent their children to yeshiva, to further their education, which was a very good thing. So it was important that we don't leave those sisters out in terms of looking at Israel as a nation, because they became the mothers of our children, and they set standard by those marriages that stayed together, because they stayed together like 10, 20, 30 years, you
Mm.
understand? Which was what we needed to have within the nation, because a lot of times the things that have happened has caused divisions in some of the families, which we need to readdress and maybe reconsider
Right.
and set a standard by which the women of Israel should carry themselves, paying attention mainly to the elderly sisters to find out the direction to go in to build a
Right.
family. So at let's see, at Beth Shalom, uh, there was Sister Alita, Sister Naomi, which was Raphael's mother, Sister Helena, Sister uh, Evelyn, which was Yehuda's wife, what they call her Anev, uh, Sister Tyria.
She's still around.
Yeah, she's still around. I communicated with her, just recently, and she's she's been a songbird in Israel from every place that she's been. You
Right.
know, she encouraged a lot of sisters to doing the things that they needed to do. Then at that time, you had Sister Zarita, and Renee was her sister,
Mm-hmm.
and all of them used to come to Beth Shalom. There was mother. I mentioned Mother Helena.
Mm-hmm.
There's another sister name from there. Then there's those sisters that went to Beth Shalom, and those sisters were Talia and Selena. Well, Selena actually went to Benai, to Beth Shalom. These sisters came along during that era, who were very intelligent sisters. They carried the mark for a long time. Then you had Mother Wisdom from King David's.
Mm.
Then you had the sisters that used to go to Corn Netanya in Mount Vernon.
Right.
Uh,
Can you tell me a little bit about King David? I heard of so many things about him. What is your memory of David? We call it the Melech Dawi. I used to
well,
hear stories about him walking barefoot in the snow, and I don't know if
yeah.
you remember all those things. And
Well, in those days, you had many brothers that used to do that. Brother Allen, let me see, you had King David, had a brother in Jersey, Rabbi Yosef.
right,
They used to, they felt that they were prophets in a sense.
right,
And Melech used to do that too.
right,
But he was a very good brother, but he just, I mean, he taught a lot of brothers,
right.
showed a lot of brothers the way, but he just succumbed to the,
Yeah, I understand.
you know,
Yeah,
but he was a very good brother.
right,
Matter of fact, I had an apartment on Fulton Street, and I
right,
gave him a room
right,
that he can come anytime he needed to come to when he wanted to.
right,
But he showed up about 2, 3 times,
right,
usually. But he was a very good brother, man. If you got to know him, he was lovable, played a harp, you know,
right,
and he patterned himself out after King David in one area,
right.
and like I said, he taught a lot of brothers. Cohen Natanya and them came from out of that camp.
Corn Natanya from where?
Who's in Ghana now?
Who's in Ghana? Okay.
He was from Mount Vernon,
He was from Mount Vernon. Okay.
right? Well, Mount Vernon, Rochelle, somewhere up there. But
Right.
anyway, he they came out of Mother Wisdom,
Mother Wisdom, I heard of her.
right? and King David.
Mother Wisdom was the wife of King David, or am I
Yes,
mistaken?
yes.
Okay, okay,
And then you had what's the other? The brother that gave me the name Zebekiah, whose name was Samuel Frazier, and
okay,
he came from there.
okay.
Okay, but he lived in the Bronx. Well, I grew up with him basically.
What's a story you could tell us about um, Chief Counsel Daniel, besides him calling everybody dummy? And but what's something you could tell us about him? Because it seemed like you spent a lot of time with him. What's a story that you could tell us about him that we might not know?
Well, when he when he was a glazier, he used to work at a glass company,
Right,
and he was very good at it.
right,
Uh, Another thing that was that I stood with him was his relationship with Tammy, his wife.
right,
You know, uh, he encouraged me in a lot of ways. Besides just the teaching. What he stood for. You know, both inside and outside. You know, he uh, he challenged many of the issues that we were confronted with. That most of those, in Israel they know about.
right,
But he was respected in the Israelite community. He was also respected in the street community. As
right.
I just say street rather than
Yeah,
uh, and he had a desire to see Israelites gathered.
mm,
He wanted us to, I guess, present that we were a united force,
right,
and he stuck to that. You know,
right.
and those are the things I saw about him. You know, that were outstanding to me.
Do you remember or do you recall when he passed away, like what year it was? And
No, that's the strangest thing. I can't. I didn't even know when it happened, and like I was listen to Eureka talking about Prince Jacob. I didn't know Prince Jacob died. I didn't know Uncle Levi died. You know, I was down here, I believe, when all three of them died.
okay,
You know, down in Atlanta.
right,
You know, but all those brothers had they left a heck of a contribution to Israel, and you can't take from what they represented because they made the children of Israel that are here be who they are.
okay,
Okay. Uh, I also became involved with uh, in those days with, like I was explaining in the last tape, last session. I got involved with many political organizations and nationalistic organizations, trying to
mm-hmm.
bridge the gap and present being an Israelite to them. I always wore my turban
Right.
most of
That's
the
what I
time.
remember you for.
Right.
When you used to come every now and then when you popped up, like when we had the congregation on St. John's
No,
and
yeah.
Nostrand, you would come up there every now and then. Then on the basement when we was in Ema Sarah's
No,
basement on Lincoln Place.
right.
I got a couple of teachings with you from back then,
Oh,
because I
okay.
was always the scribe.
And I used to, I even go in the White House with my turban on, you know.
Right,
So, so I was trying to present to the nation that to be involved, to do the things that are necessary in trying to make a nation be what it should be, as well as finding the resources to be able to make it happen,
right,
you know. And I looked at, when we look at the term Negro, and you know how we call them coons and shines and stuff like
Right.
that. People refer to them as shines. I see them all as Queen the Children of Israel.
Right.
Okay. And not knowing themselves, not recognizing who they are.
Right.
It has been the reason for what we see now. Was they never had the time to sit down and think about it. I'm looking at many of these brothers today that are going out here, you know, teaching on the corner. For some reason, after Rabbi Bivens or uh, Bob Bivens died, they got very militant,
Right.
and they raised quite a few brothers. They attracted quite a few brothers, but they could have attracted so much more.
Mm.
Okay, had they didn't have to go that way, but I understand why they went that way because you know this ain't no easy thing going out there in the corner. You know,
Right.
and I've been doing that for years. You know, I used to go on 42nd Street. I used to go on South Bronx, Intervale Avenue, Dawson Street, Ewart Place, you know, in the Bronx. And even when the gangs or the hustlers were having their conflicts, I've gone to them, took a piece of paper and seen all the brothers that had gotten killed, right, in the game. And I took the paper, put all their names down on it, and sent a paper to every group, you know, and asked them, what are y'all doing? You know, why are you divided like this? You know, I understand the game. The game is the game, but uh, there used to be honor amongst thieves.
Mm.
You know,
Right.
they destroyed it. You know, so I began to go into the Bronx, trying to address them and teaching them, and trying to show them that you know that make a difference. All the time, I had my turban on. You know, so people began to they classified me and set me aside in one sense, but yet they were open because we all grew up together.
Right.
You know, so but anyway, coming back to Israel because
So just a quick interjection. So in terms of wearing your turban, do you feel like wearing your turban was always uh, an attraction? People always ask you what you were.
what I learned, and Daniel taught me this. You read the 16th chapter of the book of Ezekiel, right?
Right.
And the 37th chapter. You read them two chapters, you begin to realize that the Most High said, for one, this was perfect,
Mm.
perfection in his comeliness.
Mm.
So it had an attraction. If you look around the world, you begin to see, and then when I think about it too, on my grandfather's side, they come from India through
Mm.
the West Indies, all the
Right.
grandmothers on my mother's side.
Right.
And in India, you see when you see them wearing their turbans, they got some. We talk about tying turbans. They
Yeah, they got some big turbans.
big turbans and tied immaculately.
Right.
Okay, but when as I looked at it and going back, well, why were we wearing turbans? In those days, you know, in ancient time, meteors used to crash into the earth. Well, meteor, what you call them, asteroids or whatever, used to crash into the earth, right? And stones of fire used to fall down. People began using turbans and stuff on their head to cover up from the rocks and stuff that fall out the sky,
Mm.
okay, to cover their heads. But later on, it became a ritual that the priest cult began to use. And as we read in Israel, they, Aaron was attired with that,
Right.
you know. And And so the years have gone by. Brothers and sisters have been wearing turbans. Some people have tied turbans, you know, different ways. I see them wear all kind of turbans. You know, then you look at the Arabs, they have a turban, a certain tie. And they all wore, you know, turbans. Sometimes they wore the, what you call that, with the band, with just a piece of
Right.
cloth over the head,
Right. Just a head covering.
and coverings.
Uh-huh.
It began as I said, a cover up to protect you, protect your head. And it just drifted off into the teaching, and it looked good if you learn how to tie one.
Right.
You know, uh, I I was thinking, looking the other day at uh, your show, right?
Right.
And I remember, see, if you look at Yerishadai's turban, it's different from what you brothers wore,
Right.
right? They
Right.
tied it different. It was tied with a certain wrap, and that's how I
Right.
began tying, you know. And so the turbans are different, and it makes a distinction in no way. Basically, you could tell, well, this brother come from here, or that brother come from there, you
Right.
know. Like they do the same thing with looking at the Indians and looking at the Arabs. Uh, you can tell the difference. So
Right.
there's a mark of distinction. And then when you go back to the scriptures that I was talking about, uh, it was established as being perfect.
Mm. Okay.
So if that's sufficient for
Right.
the understanding of how it how it outstood with our people, I believe that it's attracting. And if you got the word of the Creator in you while wearing it, it makes it that even much more attractive. You
Mm.
know, you're saying
Right.
something.
Right.
You know, but as you know, in looking at all the things that I've been involved with, I wanted to talk a little bit about first the rabbinical board when Rabbi Levi started the class at Willoughby. I
Rabbi
was in
Levy
one of
Ben Levy.
Rabbi Levi, yeah.
Right.
I was in the first class with Yehuda, Yeshurun, uh, Kashim, uh, what, uh, when Rabbi Yohanan came to be part of it, uh,
Right.
Rabbi Brooks came, you know, and we all studied together.
Right.
I didn't graduate. That's the only thing. I didn't stay, at the end of it. But as I said, I was busy in the community. One of the things I was able to do with having the card, because we used to have a little card,
Right.
identification card.
Right.
I was able to take that identification card, and when the Aruba got caught up in the Black Liberation Army situation,
Right.
he was in Barnes County, and I was able to go visit him. I didn't have to go. I wasn't searched. I could have went. I went in, and I was able to commune with him. And like
As a
years before that, he
clergy.
used to tell me, "Pick up a Bible. Why don't you put the Bible down and pick up a gun?" I said, "Man, look, you do your thing. I'm gonna do mine.
Right.
We all got the same purpose, basically, to free our people. So we need to
Right.
go. You go in your direction. I'm gonna go in mine." So, but he was shocked when I came to see him because they took me into a room and sat down with him, not behind bars, where you got to
Right.
look through the window and stuff like that. It wasn't like that. So the card of being in the rabbinical board uh, outstood at that time.
Right.
Okay, it made people, it was respected,
Right.
and that was a good thing. It had other values that it presented the education, the teaching, because you then had to study. You know, I went to that. I went from there. I used to go to Don Rubin. He used to have his class, the history class. Uh,
You mean Ruben from Prince Ruben from
and,
Chicago?
no, no, no. From Ashaba.
Oh. You talking about Corn Levy's son?
No, not Cohen Levy's son. What's the brother's name? He used to have a class on Putnam Avenue.
Okay, I might not know that
They,
Ruben.
they had a school set up, right, where they were teaching history 101.
Right.
That means you had to go through the historical perspective, but it was set up by Cohen Levy's group, and I attended that. Then I went to the rabbinical class. Well, I went to rabbinical class first, and then we started sitting around, setting up different groups. We're trying to teach, to give a sense of dignity back in Israel that we respected. And as I was saying on the last tape, we didn't have the conflict that came later,
Mm,
you know, between the groups.
right.
I basically, because I felt that it was understood that there was something new. We had found something out that was being covered up by the world, which is still being covered up like that today. But more of us are out, more of us are into the teaching. To not going to sound dragged out, I wanted to go. Well, I was talking about the sisters uh, who were in let's see, Beth Shalom. I was saying, Sister Evelyn, Sister
Right.
Belinda,
Right.
Judy, Dina, uh, Vaughn. They were all young daughters at that time. Uh, Kavisha, Queen Esther used to come by sometime.
Mm,
There was Arita
right.
and Sister Njeri. Now, Sister Njeri, I believe today she's in Ghana.
Okay.
But she was always involved with the connection of trying to connect Israel and the African movement. Let me see what else. And then we had, I guess, the sisters from the Tabernacle Live. It was Amaliket, Sheena, Ataya, uh, Yamiku, Pia, uh, Anita, right? Tina,
Right.
and all these sisters that were there. Then we went over to Beth Congregation of the House of Israel under Amaliket, which was Hadassah, uh, Kanor, and many sisters were at that camp.
Right.
I know. Then you had Reva, you had uh, Ruth,
Mm,
uh, Hadassah. Those were all in uh, at a congregation in the House of Israel. After coming to Atlanta, '97, I, as I said, I joined with some brothers called the Tabernacle of the House of Israel, and we had a place first in Clarkston, and then we went over to Church Avenue,
right.
and it was under the leadership of Daniel, brother named Daniel. He's in Israel today. Kananya,
Right.
Asa,
Right.
Elder Willard, Yamiel, uh, Yaakov, uh, Penuel, Yahavasaf, uh, another Yaakov, and many other brothers that were in Atlanta. I also went to New Covenant of Israel under the elder Yaakov. And there I met Ben Melech and I met Gideon.
Hello?
Hello? I don't know what
You
happened
still
to
there?
you.
No, I'm okay. I just blocked off the camera. That's all.
Oh, okay.
Because when this shows, it's just going to be you in the frame. So it doesn't
Okay.
matter whether I'm here or not. I'm here. I'm listening.
Okay. Then you had, as I was saying, we had Penuel and Yavasaf,
Mm-hmm.
Yaakov, brother named Job. We had
Right.
Elder Willard, Tamim, uh, Angelo, David, David, and all these brothers were at uh, where they moved from Church Avenue to Rainbow.
Okay.
Then I got to open up an organization with Zebekiah, who was also at Church Avenue. We opened the organization at that time. Yohanan Campbell, his wife Tamaria, Priest Emmanuel had come down to Atlanta, and he found me by watching me on TV on Sign of the Times TV show. And then him and Imazella came to Church Avenue and began coming there. Imazella today still is a part of she was the last of the people who were with the Tabernacle of Israel. She's still here today. As a matter of fact, I do a phone call on Shabbat and they call in. Uh, there was Yavasaf and his wife, Sister Amy. They
Right.
had a sister, what's her name? Uh, Sister Ruth,
Okay.
uh, Sister Ruth, Andrea, Holia. There was a sister named two sisters named Hannah and Cassina, who all were, they dressed in culture. They stuck together. They got behind plenty of movements. Then there was Angelo and David, who came later,
Right.
and they began representing and studying. You had Elkanah. You had sometimes King David. I mean, Melech David used to come by. Then they had their own place. Yakaniah. So there's a lot of brothers in Atlanta that I would become involved with. And then I started as I said, I started an organization called Water and Oasis with
Right.
Yohanan and Zebekiah and Elder Willard.
Right.
Okay. With that organization, we ended up getting a theater on Panola Road. There was 8 theaters in one building. And we ended up because we didn't have enough people who saw the vision connected. We ended up having to turn it over to some other people today, but we're still involved. We are within that perspective, we also had 3 other Israelite camps that were there. Yashabel and them came and utilized one of the theaters for their teaching.
Okay.
I I was holding my own with the Tabernacle of Israel, and Melech and them came. So we had like three camps, three Israelite camps inside the theater.
Okay.
The theater is still functioning today, but of course we had to turn it over to some Christians who uh, upholding it, but we're still involved with the building and yard. So there's been a lot of things I got involved with in terms of trying to pull brothers and pull families and stuff together with
Right.
good entities that were supposed to just blossom,
Right.
you know. But Israelites, you know, a lot of
You,
times we don't see the vision together.
you don't have to tell me.
You know what I'm saying? And when you do that, when you see things like that, then we had, you begin to lose out. I
Right.
was on, I've been on three TV programs: the Tabernacle of Israel, Hero Israel, and uh, well, Hero Israel changed their name, so we actually just to Yashar All for years. I would go down in the city of Atlanta for almost 10 years in Woodgrove Park, really trying to teach brothers, waking them up, trying to show, make them realize they're somebody and they just ain't what they're seeing themselves as. You know,
Right.
I left there with the Tabernacle of Israel. As I said, we opened up the Water and Oasis.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got on a radio program called Sign of the Eon. First, we used to do it on in the morning at one radio station, and then we got to doing it again on a religious or station. And some of the things we introduced was something I wanted to read. Was at that time we were asking what we call the Exodus Matrix Project, and we began that when in 2016. Reparations payment for services rendered due by end of 2016. A one-way ticket to designated countries and $15,000 per person expense. A relationship with Israel, Jordan, Ethiopia, Ghana, Senegal, Liberia, and as ports of refuge. Each person that remained allocated $15,000 per person, regardless of age, status, custody, and long as they were designated as African Americans or Black.
Mm.
Tax exemption, all designated only as African Americans or Black for the next 40 years. Tax exemption with a 0% for, for, for all Black or African Americans, designated only for the next 7 years, with a 5% cap for the following 7.
Right.
Loan forgiveness for all designated only as Black African Americans for student loans.
Mm.
Educational benefits for college and liberal arts, a minimum of $10,000 for the next 7 years and the following 7,000 for the next 10. Execution demands prior to Passover, approximately April 10th, 2017. It didn't happen, but forgiveness and closure of all felony and prison records for nonviolent crimes, including drug-related offenses and child support.
Mm-hmm.
100% job programs for African Americans, males, and heads of household with 3-year minimum wage or higher.
So this was your proposal.
Yeah, this was our the things that we were saying at that
Right.
time.
It's a lot of good stuff there.
We picked it up, and it didn't happen by Passover 2016. Actually, it hasn't happened to now.
Right.
Okay.
But I heard the other day that the state of North Carolina apologized for slavery, and they're talking about some sort of reparations. So I don't know where that's gonna go.
Well, you know, John Conyers had a proposal that's sitting, and you know, they haven't acted on it. Uh, that's in, you know, the Congress, before the Congress,
Right,
you know, for a long time.
right.
You know, I think it was called Reformation 40, if I'm not mistaken. But
Okay,
these are the things that, uh, when you know and you come to know who you are and you connect with your creator, you know that what you just go forward, basically. Just go forward and allow the creator to put his protection about you. Because certainly the degradation, the things that have fallen upon us since World War II, even since slaves were free, we suffered. They never gave us the 40 acres and a mule
right,
to stand on our own feet.
right,
Okay. So what we have to do and have to float back doing, we've had all that to struggle up to this point. So when we talk today about reparations and when we talk about the kind of novel virus, we begin to understand that the things that they're talking about in terms of the finance and the money that they're giving,
right.
it's due. And it really didn't have to have, well, it shouldn't have had to have a disease make it a reality.
That's right.
You know, why do we have to wait till something that's taken everybody's lives to have to receive the things that would do us from them carrying us here? You know, when you look at the Torah, and the Torah talks about a slave or having a servant, they violated so many things in terms of how they dealt with us as slaves, bringing us here to this country, you know, and whether they believe it or not, have to understand it. They came here through some woman, and they came here in the world that God created.
Right,
So, or that Yah created,
right,
and that's very vital when we stand up, because we're not asking for something that was not due. We're demanding it,
right.
and Yah is at our back.
Mm.
You know,
So, I have another question. What are the impressions that men like Nasi Yaakov and Corin Levy left in your life?
well, well, Corn Levy, I said he married me to my second wife, which was Sarai.
Right,
Okay, and Corn Levy was a heck of a teacher.
right.
He knew himself. He knew where he wanted his people to go.
Mm-hmm.
So he wasn't, even when the conflict came between Benai and them, uh, he wasn't up for that. You feel me?
Right,
He swore beyond that.
right,
I listened to Yurisha talking, and he was talking about uh, meeting with Cohen Levy and something he was saying, and I
he
stood.
said Corin Levy when Nasi Yaakov passed away, Corin Levy was the first one to call him.
Called him, yeah,
Right, and he had a great respect for him for that.
yeah.
Yeah,
And but when you sit both of them down, you sat Yaakov down, you sat Cohen Levy down, in their heart, okay, they wanted the same thing.
right,
They wanted to see a nation. Yaakov understood, of course, well, when he was here, he didn't fully understand that. But after he went to Chicago, he realized organization
Mm.
and how organization should be run.
Right.
Okay. He learned that going there and he implemented it, you know. Uh, it was like bringing back David
Mm.
and David's setup, you know, and he saw the importance of brethren representing themselves properly, you know. So my impression of Yaakov was that though though you know, people have their views about him,
Right.
he was a beautiful brother. He ex- excelled in the fact that we're all here today.
Mm.
You know, he's the culture he
Um.
introduced.
So the culture came from Benizaki.
It came from Ben Zakim and Hashab.
Mm.
Then when we go to out of the state and in Philadelphia, Beth Hepzibah.
Okay.
In New
In Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Right.
You know, and we had Israelites all over.
Right.
And Sergeant REA, I think REA used to work for the Transit Authority, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken. Then we had people running on the New Jersey Railroad.
Right.
We're part of Beth Hepzibah in Philadelphia,
Right.
you know. So we were surrounded by Israelites. We just didn't know they were Israelites,
Right.
you know. Going back to the conversion thing with people, all right.
Right.
I went through that with under Rabbi Coleman, uh,
Rabbi
Rabbi
Coleman from where?
Lipschitz, huh? Rabbi
Rabbi.
Coleman, he used to be on Eastern Parkway
Okay.
over in that area.
Okay.
He was part of or connected to the Lubavitch. And
Right.
I think Kashim and Dina and his family went through conversion. Uh, I followed them because Kashim and I rode together on a lot of things. You
Right.
know,
Your
we
road dog.
yeah, we rode. We we even were part of Ben Amin's organization at Bam's house when we set up the Israelite embassy at Bam's house.
Right.
You know, I was a sergeant of arms, and Kashim, he was a secretary.
Right.
You know, uh, so when it comes to Israel, we've done a lot of things together. But he went to the conversion first, and I followed him. You know, me and my family at the time, and
Right.
we utilized it. I didn't stay. I on a personal level,
Right.
I could go in in the Edomite synagogues, but I didn't feel comfortable. As you know,
Okay.
but
I
I could
get you.
go. I could do whatever they had to do, what they wanted you to do. Uh, I learned also how to do the chokes and the chanting and stuff up on
Right.
the actually Yerubal and Canna Brooks,
Okay.
and they used to be together in the congregation. You know, and
Right.
Yerubal was a heck of a Hebrew teacher,
I heard
uh,
about that. He taught Nasi Barak.
right? Uh, Yoel was also a brother from he used to come to Benai. Yoel, he used to teach. And then you had Yosef, the brother, he burned, I think he burned up in a fire,
Oh wow.
you know. And a lot of brothers that outstood in those days had gifts that they left the impact on Israel.
Right.
And many of us have embraced and really didn't know where it came from. It's like, you know that song, Yo-Hey-Yo?
Yeah.
Yo-Hey-Yo. People don't know that Kyan put that tune to that, you know. So there's so many things that were being done that we practice today, don't realize a lot of time where it came from. But Yaakov was responsible for a lot of it. Cohen Levy was responsible for a lot of it.
Right.
When it comes to the law teaching,
Look. Right.
okay, Cohen Levy was his pet.
Right.
Prince Paul, that was his pet. You know, when when they got Shema, I knew that this day they would still have that. And how I knew it was I knew Prince. Right? It lasted all those years, all these years. That's been quite a few years.
Right.
And you know you was in part of that,
Right.
you know. But I miss the brothers like Amos, Elazar, you know,
Right.
the other brothers used to come there.
Prince
Obadiah.
Elisha.
Say that again?
Prince Elisha.
Yeah, Prince Elisha, yeah. You know,
Chief Captain Meshulam.
yeah.
You know.
So a lot of these brothers, you know, they were out there and they had their contribution to Israel.
Right.
And that's all over the country now. You know, Cohen and Tanya and them, I
In
remember,
Chicago.
huh?
Calling the Tanya in Chicago.
No, Cohen and Tanya from Mount Vernon.
Okay.
I remember we bought a king. I was with them when they bought the king from Ghana and brought him to the United States. And for a portion, I was I had to, you know, like part of the bodyguard to protect him coming while he was here. He
Right.
did a thing. They did a thing at Boys High.
Okay.
Uh, I can't think of the year.
The African Street Festival.
Right, African Feast Festival. And
Right.
but Sister Endura was part of that. She helped organize that.
Okay.
Okay, but she was married to, well, they didn't get married, but she was dating Prince, well, Yehuda. Remember Yehuda from he was a correction officer, and he had his wife was Aunt Evelyn.
Okay.
You know, his son, I can't think of his name offhand, was dating Sister Injera. And so she was like influential in a lot of things that was going on in Brooklyn in those days, you know.
Right.
So in general, looking at Israel, we as I said in the last day, we were a very diverse, but yet at one point we connected together. The division that has happened, it's spread throughout the country, even to Africa.
Right.
The only thing we need to do now is bury the thing that divided us. Because we're connected all the way around,
Right.
and put our faith back in the
Absolutely.
Creator.
Hallelujah.
You know, so the excitement in terms of things that we were able to do, we're still involved in terms of dealing with water and oasis down here. Uh, Hopefully, we'll be back on the radio show soon. But the things that we've done, there's a difference in the Israelite situation in New York. But
Right.
see, the difference about New York and any other place that the other Israelites have come up in, New York was there while the Edomites or the Jews were there having their shops, having the kosher restaurants, the kosher stores, kosher
Mm.
meat markets, and stuff that Israelites on the other side, or that down south, they haven't had exposure to, because usually they would looked at it. They came in a Jewish neighborhood like a criminal. What are you doing here?
Right.
You know. So the difference there was, it was right there. I remember the conflict it was having on Eastern Parkway.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but we've always been living next to each other. In New York, the lower South, just above Wall Street, around that area. You look at Williamsburg,
Mm.
Eastern Parkway. So we had a better opportunity than others to fulfill some of the laws that we were taught in the Torah. At least they were going in that direction, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, but in the South, it's a little different.
Right.
It's not an excuse, but it was different.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
So
So,
I just got like a couple more questions.
okay.
You coming from the '60s, and in terms of what we're seeing now, when we talking about the climate of where things are now in contrast to the '60s, with all these protests and the murdering of George Floyd. Um, where do you see us as a whole, as a people, today in contrast to where we were in the '60s? As a whole, as black people, as we would say.
Well, the whole situation that we're in today is, we're lacking something.
Right.
And I was watching a tape that you just did. I watched some last that you did on the show. You had on a black turban and a red garment,
Right.
and you were teaching, speaking to the issue of Isaiah,
Okay.
right? And corresponding to with Isaiah, dealing with the book of Matthews and stuff of that nature.
Right.
The the blacks that are in this country, maybe a third of them are going to congregations,
Okay.
Christian congregations.
Right.
And I think that vital information that you were given there
Right.
needs to be taken there.
Right.
How to do it, I'd have to think about it a while.
Okay.
But that what needs to be done, because the church has always had the people.
Absolutely.
Okay. So if we can find a way to bridge that gap and show the historical factors.
Right.
See, a lot of people don't know, they don't know, when they talk about Christianity, they don't know about Paul. They don't know his life. Paul was born in Rome, or
Right.
just outside of Rome. Many people don't know that.
Right.
Okay. Uh, so when we begin to discuss that, we have to be able to put those factors into play
Right.
at a table
Right.
and sit down and let's take this piece and let's take the good from it, okay, and dispense the bad.
Right.
Now we got a platform from which to work with,
Right.
you know, but we got to deal with it in truth. We got to stop. Okay, you want to say that this is what it is. Stop borrowing false information that is not talking about what they're saying,
Right.
okay, or the character who they've described.
Right.
And if he was real, speak on him from that point.
Right.
You don't need Isaiah's talking about this when we know what Isaiah was talking about.
Right.
See what I'm saying?
Right.
We know what Daniel was talking about.
Right.
We know what Zechariah was talking about and Malachi was talking about.
Right.
We can't take from that to justify what they have been doing, all because they were taught it here.
Right.
They were taught it here by the Roman Catholic Church.
Right.
Not to put them, not having no intelligence.
I
They
know
had a
what you
lot of
mean.
intelligence,
Right. I know what you mean.
right? So, but we need to sit down at the table
Right.
and we need to put the cards on the table,
Right.
okay? So the
What?
people
Right.
who are searching for God, for Yahweh, can find him, you know, and then present themselves before him, seeking forgiveness for the mistakes that have been made, and let's change the world,
Right.
you know, and that's what we need to do.
One last question. Your opinion on the violence that's happening within our cities. New York City had a spike in violence
I,
since the
I
protests, and in Chicago, it seems like it's just completely out of control. What is your opinion on that, and what do you think is the solution
well,
to try to address those issues?
I think, see, we were built in our hearing coming to Israel the way most of us have done.
Mm-hmm.
We came to Israel by attraction, association with someone we've met, and the talking in the street.
Right.
We need to get back out there.
Okay.
We need to get to the edge of organizations as a nation, as a united people under Yah,
Mm-hmm.
and present what it is that Yah would have us to that He has taught us all these years. The Torah.
Right.
We got to do that.
Right.
That would eliminate the violence. Why? Because the Torah says that whosoever shall murder shall what?
Shall we put to death?
Surely put to death.
Right.
That's where the church failed and reaching the community.
Right.
because they taught forgiveness. Some things aren't forgiven.
Forgive. That's right.
Okay. So we need to put that out there.
Right.
We need to go to the church, sit down with the minister. Look, man, you're screwing up the community.
Right.
Why? By not telling what thus say the Creator.
Right.
God said, if you take a man's life, by your life it shall be taken.
Right.
So in that answer to that question, we need to bring the Torah to the street, to the church,
Right.
to the congregations, to the families, family meeting, family gatherings, and that we're a people. I'm killing myself.
Right. That's
We
right.
got to be. We have to be able to present that.
And so my last question, this definitely will be my last question. And I always ask people this: when it's all said and done, how would you like to be remembered on this earth when it's all said and done?
That I did my job faithfully.
Okay, that's plain and simple. You did your job faithfully.
You know.
Right. Hallelujah. So I thank you for coming on with me and giving me all this pertinent history. Maybe we could do it again some other time. Because I know you're a wealth of knowledge and you have a lot of things on your mind. So, but as for now, we could close this chapter of this interview. We could do others in the future. But thank you once again, Rosh Zebekiah, for your information and for not only for me but for all the people who listen. I've had good feedback from your first interview. People really appreciated it and loved it. So I take this opportunity to thank you and pray that the Most High God will keep you and will keep you strong and healthy. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom, my brother. Peace.
Peace.